I wish they wouldn't call it Father's Day. I wish they'd call it Dad's Day. And I wish they would change Mother's Day to just Mom's Day. Mainly because almost any man can be a father. But not every father can be a dad. So we're going to look just a few minutes this morning at what makes and what is a dad. A dad has, there's a lot of different traits that a daddy has. I mean, tons. We'll look at a few of them. Most dads, they're stern. They're tough. Some of us are wise. We're caring. They're there when you need them. They're brave. A little soft. A dad loves unconditionally, whether they tell you they do or not. Dads are special because they always play with your toys first. They make sure that the kids, they put together toys, they break them, they do all sorts of things with the kids. They're a dad. There's one huge difference between moms and dads, and most of the time, mothers thinks their kids are great just the way they are, and a dad wants to make them better. That's kind of one of the traits that we dads have. The dad is always they'll tell you that you done good, but this is what you can do to do better. They will correct. They don't hesitate to correct. They want you to succeed, so they push you hard. They push you in the direction oftentimes that they would want you to go, whether that's really the way you want to or not. But dads are also special. They teach you how to hunt. They teach you to shoot. They teach you how to bait your hook. They teach you how to take the fish off the hook. They teach the boys how to treat a lady, and they treat the young girls how a lady is to be treated. These are all things that they teach. And in a little boy's eyes, a daddy can fix anything. And in the mother's eyes, he can break it trying. Ain't that right, dear? It's one thing we dads can do. If we can't fix it, we can break it worse. A daddy is like a natural GPS system. When they go on vacation, it's like he just knows how to get there. And those 30 miles that he drove and didn't have a clue where he was, as far as the kids know, he was going the right direction the whole time. We're miraculous like that. Sometimes we're stubborn. There's a few words that don't enter into a dad's vocabulary. A daddy don't ever say I can't, and a daddy rarely says I quit. And a daddy rarely asks for help. So we're going back into the wise part. Maybe we're not all extremely wise, but that's kind of a lot the way a daddy is. A daddy carries the weight of the entire family upon his shoulders, and he won't ever wince, he won't ever grunt, he won't ever groan. A daddy worries constantly but never shows it. A daddy is often scared but never lets anyone see. A daddy chases the boogeyman out of the closet. A daddy checks underneath the bed to make sure their kids are safe to go to sleep. A daddy does a lot of things. There's many things that dads do. There's special relationships that go within a household. Usually a mother and a son have a unique relationship, but there's just as a unique relationship between a father and a son. Even more unique is between a father and his daughter, is generally a very unique relationship. I can speak for my household. I have one boy that's a whole lot like me, probably too much. And we have a special bond just because I now know exactly how aggravating I was when I was little. I have a very special bond with my daughter. She was the first. There's that, Jaylee's the one I can push harder. Jaylee's the one who needs to be pushed harder. My boys, they don't take criticism very well. They don't like it when you say you're not doing it right, then they just quit and don't do it at all. But Jaylee wants to know exactly what she did wrong. She wants to know how to fix it. She wants to know how to be the very best. And as a daddy's job, it is our job to show them how to be the very best. A daddy is often the biggest kid that the mother ever has to raise. That holds especially true, I would say, in my household, but I'm pretty sure that Mama and my sisters would say it's true for our whole family. When we all get together, me and Matt and Timmy is generally the biggest kids that are there. Daddies are special in more ways than what we have particularly mentioned. But daddies are the one portion of what daddies are that oftentimes are overlooked and kind of steered away from, and from a cultural sense. And this is where the fear that all daddies have. Daddies are that spiritual leader in that household. Daddies have shoes in which they have to fill. Daddies are, this is why we are scared. Because it is our job solely to teach our household about this book. It is a daddy's job to worry about his children, but not let the wife know it, because that's the wife's job, is to worry. Daddies kind of have this magical chest inside our own chest, that where we cram all of our emotions, because the daddies, oftentimes we pride ourselves in being emotionless. We don't want to see our wife. It's one thing for a wife to see you cry, but you never want to let your kids see you cry. Kids think daddies are so tough because even when it hurts like the dickens, we smile and we say it ain't bad. Because if we whine, then when we say suck it up and toughen up, we don't have a leg to stand on. It's daddies are just, we're a unique breed, and I forgot my phone, but I had a poem that I was going to read about daddies. If he wasn't about to sleep, I'd send Minnie to the van to get it. His eyes are open. Yeah. Sometimes daddies are blunt. Sometimes we're subtle. A daddy makes you laugh when you want to cry. A daddy knows just what to say to generally take all the tears that would be there away. A daddy can... Now here's another difference between moms and dads. Moms often know when something's wrong with their kids, but daddy knows exactly what is wrong with their kids. Sometimes, many come in and say, there's something wrong with Jaylee and I don't know what it is, and I'll give you a very specific example. Picked Jaylee up from school one day, and I know she's kind of down and out. I know she'd had a bad day. Mindy gets home. And of course, Mindy and Jaylee sometimes butt heads, but Mindy says, what is wrong with her? She's in a horrible mood. She says, I know something's wrong with her, but I don't know what it is. She said, have you talked to her? I said, no, I don't have to. Well, she said, why? I said, because I know what's wrong with her. She said, then what's wrong with her? I said, the kids made fun of her because of the shirt you put on her. Well, how do you know? Did she tell you? No. But she's in first grade and she wore a Dora shirt to school. I know the kids made fun of her, and I know that's what's wrong with her. So sure enough, she asked her, and guess who was right? Dear old Dad. It's amazing what we know. Dads, you go up to your friends in a supermarket, and just so you women will know, you'll understand exactly what happens here. You walk up, and the women will start chit-chatting about the kids. And the men walk up, and they look at the other man, and they do this. They do it back. You kind of nod and shrug there for a minute. You had a whole conversation, you never even opened your mouth. You walked up and you said, you stuck out here too? They said, yep. With a couple shrugs and a shake, they say, I wish they'd hurry up and quit talking. They shrug back and say, yep, me too. And then when they finally hush, they walk off with another nod with their head down and say, more shopping. Daddies can talk and never open their mouth. Daddies have this thing with their fingers. They can snap. They can raise their eyebrows. They can just give a look that makes their kids freeze in what they're doing. Daddies can walk in and say, what have you done today? And the kid already thinks that the daddy knows, so they just spill their guts. Daddies don't usually know how to take that, so they just let them go off and play until they talk to mommy about it. But daddies are the disciplinarians in the house. This is a job that has come down, and we look at it as by default, but it is a job that is handed down in biblical proportions. It is set forth in ordinances by God through His holy word that daddies are to be the disciplinarians in the house, that they are to train up these children, they are to admonish them, they are to raise them and nurture them in the eyes of the Lord, and that are pleasing in the eyes of the Lord. So the daddies have this that falls to them. They have to do this. Oftentimes daddy can do it with a snap, with a point, with a glare, and sometimes the 34 black or the 34 brown is what you must use. That is my favorite go-to. Let me see if I can remember where I put these. It says, God took the strength of a mountain, the majesty of a tree, the warmth of a summer sun, the calm of a quiet sea, the generous soul of nature, the comforting arm of night, the wisdom of the ages, the power of the eagle's flight, the joy of a morning in spring, the faith of a mustard seed, the patience of eternity, the depth of a family need. Then God combined these qualities when there was nothing more to add. He knew His masterpiece was complete, and so He called it Dad. That is very much true of what fathers are. Fathers are truly special. Fatherhood is probably the scariest thing that I ever ventured into. As many of you know, the first time that Minnie was pregnant, we lost that one, and I was devastated because I thought maybe I'm not ready. Maybe God showed me that there's something that's lacking. Maybe there's whatever reason, but as we do, we kind of shut down. We keep all these things to ourselves, and then we build walls between family and friends and others that are around. But then I think God knew that we was going to have Jaylee, and He knew that we needed to have her first, because if she would have come second, then there would probably never have been the boys. Because Jaylee was an easy baby, and I thought we had this made. We brought Jaylee home from the hospital. We could feed her, rock her, put her in her baby bed at 7 o'clock, and she would sleep till 7 o'clock the next morning. She rarely woke up. She slept good. She went to sleep on her own. She slept by herself. It was great. Fatherhood, I was living the dream. At the time, I wasn't working much. I think I was laid off. I spent most of Jaylee's childhood at home in the recliner. And man, me and her could eat. We'd watch cartoons. You know those packs of Martha White muffins you get that make 6 of them? I'd make those for me and Jaylee. I'd eat 3 and she'd eat 3. And we had a ball. And then comes Jace. And that's when fatherhood really got scary. Because with Jace, we went to Vanderbilt. Had a friend of mine. We got this little room to lay in. He took us down there, and he took it. I mean, he had a big old club hand, too, and he put it on my chest, and he literally shoved me back in the room. He said, you take 5 minutes to deal with this, because this is the only time that you're going to have to deal with it. The rest of the time, you got to be a rock. I said, okay. So I done what I had to do. I went in, thought for a moment, cried for a moment, and then I prayed for a while. And it was at that moment that I figured out more of my job as a father. But I come out, and I was solid. I was like that mighty oak tree. I was that rock that many could lean on. I had no real medical knowledge of anything, but yet I was the only one that could think to ask any questions while we was there because Mindy's mind was fried. But we got through that, and then we've got this demonic child up here who's definitely keeps you on your toes. This is the most challenging part of fatherhood. It's not having three, it's having one that you know is going to ruin the preacher. You have that one who really tries the preacher's patience. You know, I've said many times that Jet could drive a preacher to drink or back a billy goat up a hill. And there's been many times I've been sitting here thinking while he's doing his thing in the house, if I drank right now would be the time I'd want to go pour one. He's a pistol. He's a handful. But then you've got to juggle all these responsibilities. I've got a 7-year-old girl who's getting pretty knowledgeable in many different areas, in broad areas of life. I got to stay on my toes to make sure she's not getting too much into things that she don't need to get into. Jace, he's kind of like sitting and watching the grass grow. He don't do that much. If you guys know Jace well, you know exactly what I'm talking about. He's a unique human being. He's just like his daddy. So then we got this guy. But through all of this, and it wasn't until that long ago I realized that, you know, I've been a dad for 7 years and 3 kids. And it wasn't until seriously just not that long ago that I realized that every dad is every bit as dumb as I am. That they're every bit as inexperienced as I am. And it's not until they get to be granddads that they actually begin to know exactly what they're talking about, because then they can go back through. They was where you are. They was in that scared stage. They was in the point that they worried about everything, but they couldn't show it and they couldn't let anybody know it because, I mean, hey, we're the dad. I've come to that realization that, you know, if you waited till you had enough experience to be a parent, you'd probably be dead. It's just something that you do. It's something that you kind of learn as you go. But it's also something that is influenced throughout your entire life through the different role models in which you have from boyhood on up, whether it be grandparents, uncles, your own father, the different people that you see that you grow up and you truly, for lack of better words, that you kind of idolize. These people that are in your minds. That's who I want to be when I get older. You know, for the most part of my childhood, I could really care less about NASCAR racing, but for some reason, I always liked Davey Allison because Bubba did. And then he was killed in a car wreck, and then Ernie Irvan kind of got in that car, and I loved Ernie Irvan. And it's just the different things as you grow up that is influenced. And it's these are traits that get passed along, and the things that you watch and you look at how that they react to certain things. And me and Bubba share this same certain trait. Maybe we shouldn't be proud to have it, but there's one that we share. And it's sometimes when we work on things, we think our wrenches work better the further we throw them. Or maybe the louder we holler at it, or the harder we hit it, or the harder we kick it, you know, it's going to help it fix. And, you know, these are all things that you learn just from looking. You can look at all the different, especially for the men sitting here, the people that was in your life as you grew up, they influence who you are and how you fathered your children. Whether it was after your own parents, whether it was after friends and neighbors and family, but there's all these different things that has to do with fathers. And I know it's kind of, you know, I've rambled on here for a few minutes and you're kind of waiting on the sermon to get started, but I can tell you I've studied a lot about Abraham this week. Because you want to look at a father who went through a lot of different trials. Abraham was one. And, you know, Abraham, we share different, the kind of the same all new fathers and young fathers share a lot of the commonalities with Abraham. You know, Abraham was called out of his homeland. He was kind of called away from his family. He said, Abraham, this is what I want you to do. I want you to go over. I want you to go here, and I'm going to show you this land that I'm going to give you. I just want you to come and follow me. And, you know, as fathers, when our kids get born, while we're just kind of drug along for this ride, we don't exactly know what's ahead, but we know we have a job to do. You know, Abraham gets on through here. His name means that he's going to be the father of many. And, you know, he changed his name. He's going to be the father of multitudes, many people, many nations. And Abraham was kind of anxious at the time. I'd kind of be like Melvin coming in here next Sunday and saying, guys, I'm going to have a baby. It was probably surprising to everybody that was around. But, you know, Abraham done it, and Abraham had this boy, and which he devised his own plan to have one, and that didn't quite work out for him. But then he became patient, and he waited on that kid that God was going to give him. And God said in this one of the probably most familiar passages in the Bible, God tells Abraham, this is what I want you to do. I want you to take your boy, and I want you to go up into the mountains that I'm going to show you, these mountains that I'm going to show, I don't worry, I'll tell you where you're going. But I want you to take the boy, and I want you to offer him up as a burnt sacrifice unto me. And I want you to think of the many different things that Abraham could have done. Abraham could have said no. Abraham could have said okay. And, you know, a father has this trait that they will defend their family at all cost. No matter the cost, a daddy will defend his family. So Abraham could have said, all right, and all the meanwhile thinking in his head, I can't raise the knife against my boy. What am I going to do? What am I going to do? It may have been easier for Abraham to kind of have an accident to happen. That way he wouldn't have to kill him. And that way he could tell God, you know, I can't. This accident happened. Abraham, again, he could have just said no, and he could have tried to run away. But we're not going to get too much into this, but I want you to look exactly at what Abraham did. Abraham rose up early in the morning and saddled his donkey and took 2 of his young men with him and Isaac his son, and clave the wood for the burnt offering, and rose up and went unto the place of which God had told him. Abraham didn't hesitate. Abraham just did. Abraham got up and he went. And Abraham lifted up his eyes and he saw the place far off. And Abraham said unto the young men, abide ye here with the donkey, and I and the lad will go yonder and worship and come again to you. And I want you to see exactly what Abraham did. Abraham was willing. He went. And as a father, I don't necessarily know how he was able to do so. But he said, I and the lad will go yonder and worship and come again. He didn't say, me and the lad's going to go up there and I'll be back shortly. He kept them together. And I truly believe Abraham thought that whenever he went up there, that he was going to have to kill his son. But I truly believe he thought God was going to resurrect his son. Amen. He knew the 2 was going to come back, but he didn't exactly foresee how. But once he got up there, God just kind of speaks to him and says, hey, whoa, bud, you know that this is wrong. You know that I don't approve of human sacrifices. I just wanted to test your faith. I just wanted to see if you truly trusted me, if you feared me. He said, here, I've stuck you a ram up here in the thicket, and I go up there and get it. But I also want you to know that that is exactly what Abraham told his son. He said, God will provide a sacrifice. Now you look at this trait of a father. How is that possible? That a father could sacrifice his son? You can read it right here, and you can read where one was willing to do so. And I mean, how? How can you do that? There is no way, even on Jet's worst days, that I could sacrifice the boy. Even whenever he is screaming and crying and I'm wanting to pull my hair out, or pull Mindy's hair out, or really just pull anybody's hair out, I couldn't take him to a mountain and sacrifice him. So we see this right here where it didn't have to happen. God provided his own sacrifice. But then I want you to know that some, several years later here, you're looking at probably in the area of about 2,000 years or so later, that God was stuck in the exact same predicament. That he sent his son on a hill to be sacrificed. And how, I don't know. I don't know exactly how he was able to send him, and not only send him, but at the moment when Jesus needed him most, he did this. I don't know how Jesus stood it, and I don't know how God done it. I don't know how he could turn his head from his boy, his only begotten son, at the moment whenever his pain was at the greatest, whenever he truly needed him most, because most of you boys in here know that when you need daddy the most, daddy comes. Daddies, we know that when our boys need us the most, here we come. Come hell or high water, we are on our way. We are going. There's nothing going to get in between us. But I want you to know that God had to just simply turn around. And when it was done, he could look back. But the only reason he done that is because he loved us. Amen. That is the only reason. And I want you to know, I've got a whole slew of nephews. Think very highly of my nephews. But I don't think highly enough of them to kill one of my own kids. I love the children in this church. Think a lot of them, but I'm not going to sacrifice one of my kids for them. I don't believe there's any daddy here that would argue with me. But that is the love in which God had for us. Now, as daddies, our charge is to love our children, to admonish our children and bring them up and nurture them in the eyes that are pleasing, under the eyes of God. And I want you to know that every daddy here will say that he loves his kids. Amen? Man, we ain't got a clue what love is. We ain't got a clue. But I'm going to tell you what our job truly is, because this is kind of what I understood coming into this week. So if you want me to wrap up the entire sermon and give it to you real quick, I can give it to you. My voice ain't going to, I've been kind of hoarse. There ain't no way I can get loud and kind of pound it at you this weekend, but I can tell you it's like this. Men, our job is simply this. We know that we're the spiritual leaders of the household, amen? Our job is to find out more about God. Amen. Our job is to find out what that love truly is. Because without knowing the full extent of God's love, knowing that the full extent of how God truly not only loved his son, but loved you and I, until we can figure that out, until we can begin to learn that, I can tell you with the utmost confidence that we're not going to be good fathers. Because first and foremost, we must fear God. The more we know of God, the more we will fear God. We must love God. More so than all the rest in our house, we must love him. Amen. And we must learn of that love that is in him. Once we have done these things, all these traits, these qualities in which we talked about that a daddy has will come naturally. Because then God is going to shine through us. That is our job as fathers. That is what we are to do, is to learn and to show God's love. Anybody here have anything that they would like to say to or about their father? I can tell you guys, and I don't know if I can tell you without getting the slightest bit emotional, But I can tell you the 6th time that my daddy told me he loved me was this morning. Six. Don't think you kids don't listen to what you say, because they hear it. I'm ecstatic this morning. You know, as we said, daddies don't often say, "Good job, I'm proud of you." They say, "You done pretty good, but next time you ought to try doing this." Right? That's what we do, dads. Daddies don't do a good job at expressing emotion. And coming from the line of men in which I come from, we are horrible at expressing emotion. I mean, horrible. That's why I can tell you that there's 6 times in my life that I know, and I'm sure there was more when I was little and don't remember it, but I know of 6 times in my bigger days in which my daddy told me he loved me, one of which was this morning. And I can also remember, I think, 3 times that he told me he was proud of me without any further instruction. I want to tell you, as a young man, that means the world to you. And as a daddy, I know why he done it. It was to push me harder, to push me farther, to ensure that I would not stop until I succeeded at what I chose to succeed at. I think if he'd have been more like Mama and give me the pat on the back and said, "Attaboy, you done good," even though she knew good and well I didn't do worth a hoot, I don't think I'd have been here today. And granted, everything that my daddy taught me how to do, I'm left-handed. So I either had to learn how to do it right or not do it at all. That's why I still can't play a guitar. I couldn't play one right-handed, and he couldn't teach me left. That's why I still can't shoot a shotgun off my left shoulder, because Daddy only taught me how to shoot right. There's so many different things in my life that I am the way I am merely just because my dad is who he was. Each of you sitting out there is exactly the same way. So let's hear your story.